Hello everyone, this will be the 10th or 9th video of the Java tutorial where we're going to be learning about arrays, the introduction of arrays. So this is going to be the first part about arrays. The second part we're going to dive in just a little bit more deeply into it. So let's start off with the basics. So you're well aware of the int data type, and we can call this number, but if you have a whole list of numbers, so you have it number and you have it number 2 and so on, it can get very repetitive and very tedious. And that is where an array comes in. So, how do you call an array? Well, it's simple. Just like this, and then put something here, and then just say it's equals to new int, and you specify the size in here. Now, for when you declare a data type, it will resort to its default value. So the default value of calling an int in Java is 0. A default value of calling a car, I would believe, is a space. Default value of a Boolean array would be false. So things like that. There are other ways to call this, so you can go like so. You can go that, you can say array, and we can say equals, we can say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, like so. So let's continue. So we know that arrays are now useful for when you have basically multiple variables. So let's go ahead and see the practicality of this. So let's say 4, and we go int I, we're going to say this is 0, and while I is less than the array dot length, I plus plus, sorry. So why does it start at 0? Well, computers in low-level languages and in most high-level languages as well start at 0. So 0 is included, so, and there are still 10 numbers, so it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9, and it starts all over. So it begins at 0, and it just continues going up. And we specify when we iterate through an array that it's less than the length. Because even though it stops at 4, the length is actually 5, because remember you're including 0. So it's not 1 to 9, which would be 9, but it's 0 to 9, which would equal 10. And in this case, it's 0 to 4, which equals 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements, which is why I is less than the length. Why I is less than the array length, because if I was equal to the array length, well, that just wouldn't work out now, would it? Because this would be 0, that would be 1, that would be 2, that would be 3, that would be 4, but there's 5 numbers here. So the length is 5. So it would try and access 5. Anyway, we can now print something along like this. System.out.println, and we can just say array I. And then when we run it, if it doesn't take forever. As you can see here, we see the printed numbers. Now to access the array, you always call in the key. So if we want to change this, we'll just say, will be, so if we want to add 5, we wanted to add 4 to each of them. And then we wanted to print them out. We do something like this. So we get the array, and then we get the key to access the array, and then add 4 onto it. Add 4 onto it. So as you can see here, 0 is now 4, 1 is now 5, 2 is now 6, 3 is now 7, and 4 is now 8. So that can come in handy in a number of ways. But there's also, I believe I still have time. Yep. But there's also another function. We can also call classes and make objects. So we did that in the last video. About to say episode then. And to call it, have an array of objects, we're going to say real estate, like so. And we're going to say houses, and we're going to say use a new real estate, and we're going to say there's 5 of them. But as is the case in the previous video, there's no values assigned to this because we don't have a method in here that automatically assigns a value. We have to make the value ourselves. So if we were to go along here, so int I and go I is less than houses dot length I plus plus. I'm missing all the keys today. So we want to do that, and we want to access the houses. Well, we're going to have to call it like this, but there's no information. So if I was to say system.out.println and then system.out.println, system.out.println, I'm just doing this so I can get in your head. And then we say houses, and then we get the key, and then we get the house value. We're going to notice that when we do this, there's not going to be there's not going to be anything. There's going to be an error message popping up. And is that not right? Parentheses. So we go ahead and run this, and we're going to notice that nothing happens, and we'll get an array, not an array, an exception. Yep, null pointer exception. What does null pointer exception mean? It just means that it points to something that doesn't really contain any value. So it's not 0, it's literally no value. It's not a, it's nothing. There's nothing there. So we have to add those values like before. And if you guys don't know how to do that, I'd advise you to look back on my previous video, how to do that with one object, and just do that with these 5 objects in the array. A way to do that, I would call in a function in here, and I would say, or a function in here maybe, whichever is your preference. If you want to make a default value, you can call here, but if you want to make a custom value, you can call it in here. And you can say private static void, yeah, maybe. And you can say, what, initialize, and you can say real estate, let me say houses. And then inside here you have something like a for loop that will iterate, real estate and a scanner. And the scanner will check for what values that you want to put in, or you can just do it yourself. And it will produce some custom values for you. So I advise you to try and do that, play around with the arrays a bit, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.